You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door. You get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
In the U.S. Army, you can make a choice to make your mark. With over 150 fields to choose from, join forces with us and take on anything.
Get informed, get inspired, and get connected. CannabisRadio.com presents NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice. The National Cannabis Industry Association is the only national trade organization representing the businesses of the legal cannabis industry. NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice covers a range of topics, including the rapidly evolving political and policy changes that affect our industry, news and events of importance to cannabis professionals, and features on companies, individuals, and campaigns at the cutting edge of the cannabis industry. NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice begins now.
All right, we're here on the Midwest Cannabis Business Conference show floor for our 2021 show. It's so good to be back here after such a long time of not being able to see our NCIA members in person. So we can see you in person, but we're wearing masks here at the conference. How's your day going so far, Christine?
It's going really well.
Awesome. So my guest in the room right now is Christine De La Rosa from the People's Ecosystem. And you flew all the way from where?
Well, I flew from Austin. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks for making it all the way up here to Detroit, Michigan. The Midwest region is really kicking off. So let's talk about your company, the People's Ecosystem, and your involvement in NCIA. In addition to being a member, you're also involved in one of our committees. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I have been part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for the last 2 years. And this year, I'll be chairing that committee. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Woo!
Yes.
What kind of focus and initiatives would you say are going to be first and foremost on your plate in that committee this upcoming year?
Top of our agenda this year is going to be the SAFE Banking Act. One of the things that we're really concerned about is the fact that some of the senators like Cory Booker have said they're going to basically body block the passage of that unless social equity is first on the ticket. And I need to make him understand, and the committee needs to make him understand, as operators, safe banking for people of color is social equity. And because they don't see it that way, I feel like it's really up to us as the DEIC committee to put that forefront, as long as federal regulation.
That makes perfect sense. The barriers to entry for these Black and brown communities who have been most impacted by the war on marijuana, it does make sense to open up the banking, to lower the barrier to entry, and to give more opportunities for these folks to be part of the industry. I think when we were looking at some other legislation, like the new Senate bill draft, the KOA, doesn't quite have the same ring as Safe Banking or MORE Act, but there's definitely a focus on issues like expunging records and providing a path for those folks to work in the now legal industry that they were once possibly incarcerated for, right?
Yeah, that is true. And really, what has been happening right now, as somebody who has social equity as part of the framework of their company, is that by not passing the Safe Banking Act, you're putting people of color, Black and brown people, poor people, in the same situation of having to go get basically payday loans, but 29, 32, 40% interest, just be able to operate on a social equity license that they won. So how is that at all not reharming our communities? So we can't continue to keep putting stuff in legislation that basically just repurposes the harm. So now, no, you're not getting put in jail because you're in cannabis, but now you are having to take out these ridiculous loans. So for us, SAFE is like the top of our list to really get them to understand that they have to do this part. Like before even the KO happens, this is the priority for people of color. This is a priority for operators in the cannabis industry, and this should be the priority for the communities that are supporting cannabis operators.
Absolutely. Yeah, and of course NCIA's government relations team has been working on that Safe Banking Act for, Congress moves at a glacial pace, as they say. But it's great to see the continued support, the growing support, and sometimes things in DC are a bit incremental rather than sweeping changes. So we go with the changes.
Yeah.
Speaking of changes, our industry definitely, and the whole world really, has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Cannabis companies, thankfully, we're able to stay open in most places, except Massachusetts, during the harshest of lockdowns. And the way they were able to do that is through curbside delivery, online pre-orders, things like that. So we were able to shift, and we were able to create safety precautions to continue operating. Thank goodness. How did the COVID-19 pandemic, and I know we're still in it, how has that impacted the people's ecosystem?
Well, I think it impacted us, of course, in some cases negatively, because there was a lot of fear, especially at our dispensaries in the beginning when we didn't really know anything, right? When we were just like finding out about this, like let's think March, April, May of last year. And it had, we had to spend extra money to get everything up to safety, put in, sneeze guards that you see at buffets.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
Welcome to Parent-Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture Miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
But also it was really awesome because they had to say we were essential. They had to say, this actually helps somebody. Before they were like, oh, it's recreational, it's adult use. And one of the things that we always say at the ecosystem is that all use is medical use, right? And even if it's recreational. So when they said essential, that meant even recreational was essential because people use it for different things. So I think that was one of the hardest things to do, but it was also really great because it allowed us to pivot our own company to figure out what else we could be doing in the industry. And that's how we transitioned from a dispensary to an ecosystem where we're doing product lines in Oregon, product lines in California. We're going to be co-manufacturing in Massachusetts, Michigan, which is why I'm here, and Arizona, New Mexico in the next probably 2022. And we weren't really thinking about that until we were like, wow, we need to have other streams of revenue besides just dispensaries.
Wow. Yeah, and thus the hashtag Cannabis is Essential was born. That was really groundbreaking for our industry, I think. It really helped cement us as part of the American economy in a lot of ways. So speaking more broadly, I mentioned some of these federal pieces of legislation that we focus on, like the MORE Act, safe banking, so on and so forth. If you could look into the future, and I know our government relations team really does not like these crystal ball questions, but what are your thoughts when you look into the future about legalization, descheduling, making these incremental changes into law?
I think they are essential, actually. That's essential not only for our communities, people of color, gay communities, LGBTQ communities, but also just for the general public. And in a crystal ball, I think that this is the year where we activate the small business owners, where we activate individuals. Because I think a lot of times, like not just NCIA, but a lot of the lobbying, when they're going to lobby, I think that the senators think, well, they're lobbying for the big guys. They're lobbying for the, they're thinking about the Safe Banking Act in terms of the large MSOs. I don't think they understand that it really is it's not a trickle-down effect, it's a raise-up effect. We need to make it safe to bank for people of color so they're not carrying millions of dollars in cash at their store. I mean, recently, one of our stores, one of our delivery services in Oakland had a car ram into it because they thought we kept money there, and I don't keep money there. And so that was lucky. And I know not to keep money in there because you're going to ram into they didn't get in, but they rammed it, right? And so I think for me, with the crystal ball, if I could look into it, is that there's a saying, and I can't remember who said it, but it's a really famous person that's like, never doubt the change that can be made by a small group of people, because it's literally the only thing that has ever changed anything. And that's who we're going to be this year. It's going to be individuals, small people going to their legislatures one-on-one, talking to them, explaining, not from a lobby perspective, and no hate on the lobbyists because we need them, but also from an actual community that says, this has to stop. You have to stop repurposing the harm. You have to stop making us go to payday banks to get loans. You have to stop from letting the people that always are predators on small businesses. That has to stop. You have to help us. And I think we're going to get it done. I think we're going to get it done. I don't think it'll be done in 2022. I mean, I could be hopeful. But I think if we mobilize the Army that the NCIA has and small operators alongside the larger MSOs, I think we can move the needle this year. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know that for sure.
It's the crystal ball question. That's okay. I think a few years ago, everyone thought it would be federally legal by last year.
That's right.
So, I mean, yeah, these crystal ball questions are just for entertainment purposes only, right? Well, it's great to be here in the Midwest. How's your experience been so far here at the conference?
I have to tell you, I really love Detroit. I love Michigan. I love their industry here. It feels, coming from the California market and the Oregon market, it's like a breath of fresh air. No hate on California and Oregon, but I think in the Midwest, we're starting, well, with the exception of Illinois, who's still, cluster, but in Michigan, you see people actually working together. You see the dispensaries are up and running in a smaller time frame. I know they're having some issues with the new licenses here in Detroit, but I think they'll get through that. And I love talking to the social equity applicants. I've been training with them through the Detroit project. So all of the social equity activists here in Detroit, applicants in Detroit, I've been doing classes, and we're going to do classes tomorrow here at the NCIA. The DEIC is going to be doing that. And I just love it here. I just think that they're real excited about the industry in the way we should be excited everywhere else. And I think that that's true for all the states that aren't California, because it's one of the older ones. So we're kind of jaded. So to come around this new energy, it's saturated, but to come around this new energy is really exciting.
Tell me a little bit more about the workshop tomorrow.
Oh, sure. So tomorrow we have 40 social equity applicants from Detroit who is going to be coming to this 3-hour workshop with myself, Khadijah Adams, who was the previous DEIC chair, Mike Lamoto, who works for the NCIA, and we have a great program put together. We're going to be doing lightning rounds where they can just ask all the questions. We're going to be doing I'm going to be doing a talk where you can come and sit with me. It's like speed dating and in this capacity, I'll be acting as an investor because I have a fund now outside of the ecosystem that invests only in BIPOC and women-led businesses.
Amazing.
Thank you. So I'm going to be sitting as an investor, and we do speed dating. So you get 3 minutes, you get to sit at my table, you get to ask me all the questions about what they need for investments, and then they hit the button, and then you go to the next round of people. And then after that, we harvest all the data from the people and what they learned, and then we're going to send it out to them afterwards. And then there's a couple of really great speeches happening. I know the city of Detroit is sending a representation to answer questions for the social equity applicants. So I'm very excited about the programming tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's good to be back. And as we wrap up here, as far as what you were saying earlier about, yes, the lobbyists do the formal lobbying, but really the constituents also need to come in and underscore the work that our lobbyists are doing as well. And I really can't wait to get back to D.C. for lobby days whenever we can do that again. And it's my absolute favorite NCIA event and program, even with, we joke about the blisters on your feet and all that, but it really is one of the most impactful events. There's no expo floor. It's real activism in the halls of Congress. So I can't wait to get back to doing that.
I know, I can't either. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is really encouraging people to lobby from their home, because senators and House Representative people go home and they have to take meetings, and you can actually schedule a meeting with your representative. They have to take the meeting. Like, that's their job. And so, yes, absolutely going to DC Lobby Days is a lot of fun, but also what can we do while we're waiting for that? Let's meet them where they are. Let's go to their offices in Schenectady, in Austin, in Oakland, and talk to them in person right there, so that they know that this isn't just something that happens when we do a Lobby Days. We're constantly working on that, and this is what we're going to be organizing this year, so I'm so excited about that.
Great. So more town hall attendances
Yep.
and phone calls and emails. And yeah, so yes, you're right. They want to hear from you, and they need to hear from you.
Yeah, and I think hearing from their constituents in their offices in those cities where they represent is also very powerful.
I totally agree. Well, Christine, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes from your experience here at the show to sit down in the podcast studio, and I hope you have a great time visiting the booths and going to the panels and the workshop tomorrow. Sounds fantastic. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice will return once we give a voice to our sponsors.
Hello there. I'm your host, Bethany Moore, NCIA's Deputy Director of Communications, and we're sitting in the podcast studio on the expo floor of our first trade show in 18 months since the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of our lives. And we're still not out of the woods, but we're able to be here. We're able to wear masks and social distance and have hand sanitizer, and we're keeping with all the safety regulations here in Detroit and at the TCF Convention Center. And I have sitting with me Frederica Easley of the People's Ecosystem. She's a co-worker with Christine De La Rosa, who I spoke with earlier. Welcome to the podcast studio.
Hey. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the People's Ecosystem as far as your role with the company and what you're up to this year.
So up to a lot. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives, and so basically I try to make sure that the company is positioned in all ways that move us forward. Primarily, I am analyzing legislation, looking at rules and regulation with a lens of equity. And so trying to identify states that are introducing new exciting ideas and to follow them and see how, theory to practice works out. But also, identifying some of those areas that are a little problematic, may do what we kind of tagged as repurposing harm. And it may not be intentional, right? A lot of times I don't think that people are nefarious in the words that they're putting forth. But again, we know that there's a difference between what's written and then how that actually goes into practice. And so those are the things I focus on. Maybe about 2 or 3 months ago, I've started putting out a newsletter as well as a weekly podcast, just highlighting all things in terms of the cannabis culture, but my take on it. So I'm reading articles. I'm seeing that these new trends. I saw you had BDSA out here in the hall, and so I love reading their reports and just, again, like I said, being blunt about it. The podcast is called The People Are Blunt, as well as the newsletter. And so introducing, just my take on it, just how I see it shaping out, what I want, what I think people should look forward to, and what they should follow in terms of those stories. So just kind of doing any and everything, right? But really, like I said, focusing on an equity lens. And most recently, and I'm super excited about this, I was just accepted to the state regulation NCIA committee. Woo! Woo, 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 woo. So I am excited to learn from and to work with the amazing minds on that committee. Yeah.
It's so nice to have you folks from the People's Ecosystem so involved in NCIA and our committees and our initiatives. So thanks for being involved at that level as well. One of our keynote speakers this morning, we had a couple NFL football players.
I sat in on that.
Megatron and Rob Sims. One of them had a quote this morning about his frustration with states when they enact marijuana laws. Social equity seems to be an afterthought, whereas it should be part of the program from the get-go. I think Massachusetts was perhaps one of the first states that actually included some provisional social equity licenses set aside as part of the legalization. What are your thoughts around all that?
I did not want to interrupt when they were on stage, but in my mind, I was clapping. Like in my spirit, I was clapping, and absolutely that's the case. I mean, most of the states, their legalization process started with medical, right? And then we get into recreational, and then we start to think about social equity. And the issue with that is that they are already, so once again, these are, people from communities that have been disparately impacted by the war on drugs, by policies with the war on drugs. And so they're already starting out, at a disadvantage, because you have medical being able to get its foot in the door, right, and to claim its space, and then medical also being able to first expand into recreational, okay, and then now they're being let in. And before having an opportunity or before having the support that's needed in order to make sure that they can succeed. So we know that access is not enough. Okay, and that's access to capital, but we know also you need access to relationships. You need access to intellect, okay? Because even if you come from the legacy, you know how to do things in that world. But now you're coming into this regulated world where you have to deal with all of these compliance issues and you have to play by the book, And so that's a different game. And so we know that the issue that a lot of equity applicants are having is, one, the time around it, the access, the support. And so I totally 100% agree with him. I think the other thing for me that I've been seeing and is problematic in terms of the way we're doing social equity is it's limiting, right? So you'll have something, and they spoke about this in one of the other sessions this morning, micro business licenses. And so you'll have a micro business, but there will be limitations around it. So in order to receive support, or in order to receive, some kind of flexibility, you have to stay in this scope. Well, what happens when that social equity applicant or that social equity license holder wants to scale? Then they're immediately pulled out of that classification. And so once that happens, now they're looking at maybe having to pay all of the taxes and the fees and things that are associated. Now they're out of receiving that assistance. And so it's a drastic switch. And that to me is limiting. I don't want our social equity applicants to be limited. And it's, social economic equity, right? And so I don't want them to be economically limited just because they're receiving help due to social realities and norms that happen in the communities in which they grew up in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems like there's a few blind spots in that model of legislation as well.
I mean, even the fact you're a social equity applicant, but you're expected to have $1 million, $2 million in equity, or in capital that you have access to, just kind of sitting there. They have these exorbitant fees, and so you have people literally like mortgaging their homes. They're borrowing from whoever they can. Friends, again, we talked about networks, so they're borrowing from who they can. These individuals may not have the time, right, for the long game. So they're like, okay, I can loan you this money for a year. Well, this process takes longer than a year. We're seeing in Chicago the problems with their lotteries and how many lawsuits and things are in play. And so how people have literally been in limbo, right? So they don't have all of that cash to play with. And so what position does that put them in? You're saying that they have to have, if they want to go for retail, they have to have a location. Most people are going to require them to put some money down in order to hold that location. They have to have, proof of having this capital just sitting there and just waiting. But then you want them to wait 2 and 3 years and things of that nature for this process. So there are a number of issues. And like I said, I don't believe that they are nefarious, but there are a number of issues that seem to not be thought of on the front end, but then people are impacted, lives are impacted, time is wasted, and then you have to come back on the back end and try and fix it.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. These blind spots certainly need to be addressed at the head of these conversations as well. Oh gosh, so
yeah.
no, that was great. Thank you. And as we look at other issues like taxes, and I mean, goodness, like even with all those other hurdles, there just seems to be one hurdle after the next. What's the joke? We're regulated more heavily than plutonium, like. So
and the taxes, and not to cut you off, but just I was thinking about this because Michelle, in the warm up is what they call it, the warm up to the keynote today, she and Aaron were talking about the tax piece, and one of the things that really struck me, they were talking about the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, Schumer, Wyden, and
right.
Booker's
The
draft
Payola.
legislation. Yeah, and so in terms of the tax piece, there's a THC potency limit or association with that. And again, I do not think that they are trying to be intentional with harm. But when you think about who the medical card holders are, just to be plain, they are not BIPOC people, or by and large, they're not BIPOC people, because you have to think about the process in order to get a medical card. So that means that, one, you have health insurance, because you have to see a primary care physician. That means that you have a job that allows you to take time off. Maybe your job allows you to take paid time off so that you can make that appointment. And then we know historically that Black people are not believed by medical professionals. We have, there are so many documents that speak to the historical racism in our healthcare system, right? And that Black pain was not seen as being equal to white pain. And so when we're looking at the numbers of like who actually has a medical card, who can benefit from this, then that's another harm, right? That's being done. So if we're limiting THC, what we're saying is that, if you are privileged enough to have coverage and to be able to get a medical card, then you're okay. Right? And you can have the dosage and things of that nature that you need. But those who are using technical recreational cannabis, right, even though they may be trying to heal themselves from something that they are not diagnosed, haven't been diagnosed with, and or have but can't go the medical card route, well then now you're going to be at another disadvantage, because now you have to buy more, and then you have to worry about being outside of the bounds of the limits that you're able to have for personal consumption. So these are those things that, like I said, I don't think is being intentional. I don't think they're intentionally trying to harm communities of color, but it winds up happening.
They just didn't think this through. Yeah, the potency limits for THC, just don't add up to me, particularly since you can always smoke more. But like you're implying, like that means you have to buy more, and there are daily limits. And, so all of these things mix together and create, a perfect chaos, basically, that needs to be addressed. So yes, our government relations team has provided feedback back to the Senate for that discussion draft bill, and addressed issues like that as well. So hopefully we'll see some tweaks and adjustments in the right direction to that bill as it makes its way through a bill on Capitol Hill, right? Yep.
We know what that process is like, especially for the Senate. But, fingers crossed. I mean, they definitely, I applaud the three senators for the way in which they handled this. They're very clear, very intentional of creating opportunities for feedback, and even in labeling it a draft bill, draft legislation. It was clear that they really want to hear from people, and they want to have an opportunity to do whatever like tweaking and updating would be necessary. So that was really awesome.
Yeah. Well, things move at a glacial pace at the federal level. But you are from California, is that right? No? Okay. People's ecosystem.
The ecosystem is there.
Okay, yeah, got it.
So the ecosystem staff, we're all over the place. So originally I am from Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Yes. I currently live in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Yes. So not Cali, but I love Cali. I got love for Cali.
Gotcha. I knew the People's used to be the People's Dispensary,
yes.
right? And now it's the People's Ecosystem.
Yes.
It started in California,
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
In a closet.
Someone's garage, right?
Literally
yeah.
in a closet, right?
That's so funny. Well, we will be in California in a couple of months here in December at our Cannabis Business Summit and Expo, our big show, and it's good to be back here in Detroit for the Midwest show. So this is kind of getting our sea legs back a little bit after a year and a half of not hosting in-person events. So we're making it a priority to keep everyone feeling safe. Masks, hand sanitizer, social distancing, the whole 9 yards. How's your experience been so far as being around this many people again?
Yeah, one, it is, I don't know what normal is. I don't know what that's going to be.
It's gone.
Right? But it is, it feels great to engage in activities that we once did. And so we're doing a lot of elbowing, it's a lot of air hugs. It's a lot of, I guess the interesting thing is the information that we offer about ourselves now, because you run into someone who you may have met virtually or emailed and things of that nature. And it's like, well, how do I greet you? I'm vaccinated. Are you vaccinated? And, normally people would not offer that kind of, like HIPAA's a thing, right? So normally people would not offer that kind of information about themselves.
People value privacy.
Yeah, but it's amazing. One, to me, that means that people are taking it serious, right? Or at least those who are here are taking it serious because you're being proactive and just kind of acknowledging like people's angst about being in the space. But I would have to say everyone is masked up. There are so many stations around for like with sanitizer. The rooms are not like they're spaced out so that even the seating, is spaced out to make sure that people are not on top of each other and people are sitting in rows where they're leaving a seat or two depending on how they're grouped. So you all are doing a really great job at like kind of like kicking us off and reintroducing us into like these social spaces. Yeah.
Well, it's good to be back and hopefully slowly but surely NCIA can, we will continue these conferences and then hopefully those awesome little networking reception events we used to do across the country, the cannabis caucuses, those are all great. So we're going to slowly but surely get back to all that. And speaking of getting back, I will let you get back to the rest of your show experience.
Thank
you. I
this
hope
is
you
my first too, so
it's so well, great. It's great to have you here. Yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day and conference experience tomorrow. And thank you for taking a few minutes to sit down with me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.
When you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.
Welcome to Parent-Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture Miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.